given they were told to eat from the king's table. Now, what would you think about that? If think about your food or the food that a high official, maybe like the president, the president might eat. Which would you think? Would you be? I would be honored. Would you, to eat from the king's table? That sounds very good. All right, but Daniel and his friends, Daniel was very wise. And where did he get his wisdom from? Where did he get his wisdom from? He had special ability, right? To interpret dreams. Where did that come from? How could he do that? Hmm? How could he do it? It's from who? What's the source? The source is the Lord. Yes. So he had these things came from the Lord. I mean, ultimately, God is the source of everything um, in this situation. But he was faithful. So Daniel, and in the background, it says the book of Daniel opens with the statement that God delivered the southern kingdom of Judah into captivity. And so it talked about the three stages of captivity. First one, when Daniel and the three Hebrew boys were taken. The second, when King Jehoiakim and the prophet Ezekiel were taken into captivity. And then the third stage is when the temple was destroyed by fire. And it said that when scholars argue that since Daniel and the Hebrew boys were taken into exile early, they may have been from wealthy, prominent families. So anyways, while they were in captivity, they remained faithful to God. And we know this because you can think about Daniel and the three Hebrew boys. The three Hebrew boys were thrown in the what? Fiery furnace. All right, and they said they believed that their God could do it and would save them. But even if he didn't, he is still God. So that's faith. They trusted. And then Daniel was thrown in the what? Lion's den. The lion's den. And so because of their faith, not necessarily that the king then he did recognize, the king did recognize in all of these situations that their God was indeed the most powerful God. So we want our faith to be to others as a witness, a greater witness of how good God is. So no matter what the situation that we go through, no matter how, we need to make sure we're responding in the right way, that we are praying, that we're listening to the Lord. All right, so this right now, a lot of people, I know at my job, they're doing a fast. So we regularly fast, right, on Wednesday. And so fasting is a good part of being a Christian, okay? And so this is what Daniel said. First of all, we heard the word eunuch. Does anybody know what a eunuch is? It's in here too. But there were eunuchs in Esther. They took care of the harem. They're men, and it says that they were castrated. But they would be in charge of the women in the court, and they were also in charge of certain other aspects. So they were over these particular men, Daniel and his friends, and others that were, that the king would kind of go to at times for various things. All right, so what role do you think, I'm going to ask this question that's at the bottom, fasting plays in developing and strengthening our faith? So, part of the king's table when they ate, they would have eaten meat. And in some of the background, it also talked about how everybody, like now we have meat as part of our meal, right? They have to encourage us, meatless Mondays or something, but we eat meat, those of us that are regular, yeah, every day, right? With every meal. But these, they said, not everybody, that was like I'm going to call it a delicacy or something that maybe more wealthier people did, because everybody didn't have access to meat. They couldn't just go to the grocery store, so they had to have cattle or whatever out there. Now, so for them to get this, like I said, I would think too, oh, it's coming from the king. It's got to be something good, the best of the best. But Daniel and his friends um, exercised godly wisdom. What were some of the reasons that you can think of that they might have said, no, we're not going to eat, but we're not going to eat from the king's table or drink the wine? Why do you think they might have chosen not to do that? They didn't worship the king, okay, and that might be one possibility. They had faith in God. And so, what might that food from the king's table have been done? What might the king have done to that? Not necessarily poisoned it, but he might have offered it up. It could have possibly been offered up to their false gods. Okay, and so they also had certain things that they were not to eat. Remember, this is Old Testament time, so there were certain things that they couldn't eat and things like that. So there might have been, and it says here, he said that he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. So that's a clue that something in it would have defiled him. Okay, so it could have been offered up previously to their false god, or it could have been, that it was some things that they just were known that they're not supposed to eat, like pork or whatever. I don't know. All right, so anyhow, those are some of the reasons why he might not have. But I notice here the way that he did. He didn't tell him, no, I'm absolutely not going to eat that, right? The wording here says, he said he requested. So even though I'm going to bring it to us, have things that we know that we're not going to do, and if it's your job or if it's someone in your family who's over you or whatever, I don't know the situation, whatever the situation is, if you find yourself where someone's asking you to do something that you feel, personally, I just don't believe in doing that. That's not going right for me. We don't have to get indignant. We don't have to be ugly or rude. We can still be respectful and go to that person. And you don't have to put it out there in the open. I ain't getting ready to do that. I'm a Christian and we don't believe in. All right, so you can go to that person off to the side. And yes, we can stand on, I am a Christian and I don't believe in, but do things respectfully. Sometimes when you say something in a big crowd, it causes an uproar and lots of conversation. I don't need to discuss. This is my belief. So I'm going to come to you respectfully. And that's what he did. Now, when we look down here in verse 10, the prince of the eunuchs said he feared the Lord and king. So he said, why should your faces be worse liking than the children which are of your sort? So in other words, he said, I'm going to be feeding them the finer things and they're going to look better than you. And if I do that and you go and you looking poor, like downcast and sickly and whatever, then the king is going to be upset because you could not go before the king looking sad. The king is going to think something is up. He really, that was one of the things. So he was afraid. And so Daniel told him to test them in verse 12 for how long? 10 days. Just give us 10 days of pulse. And what is that pulse? Colin, what's the pulse? It's vegetables. Okay? So they're going to just eat vegetables for 10 days. All right? And so basically they were going to be vegetarian for 10 days. Okay? And they're doing this because they don't want to eat from the meat and the stuff from the king's table. And so at the end of those 10 days, he said, then you can come and test us, look at us, and see how we do. Okay? And then when he did, after the 10 days, y'all look down at verse 15. at the end of the 10 days, Daniel and his three friends looked how? Healthier and better nourished than the young men who had been eating the food from the king. So after that, the attendant fed them only vegetables instead of food and wine that he gave to the others. So that right there um, is a testament to them. And so it says in verse 17, it's not just um, look at the source of why he can. That happened. God, right? God gave them. All right, and I'm just looking at the New Living Translation that says that God gave these four young men an unusual aptitude for understanding every aspect of literature and wisdom, and God gave Daniel the special ability to interpret the meanings of visions and dreams. So when the training period ordered by the king was completed, the chief of staff brought all the young men to Nebuchadnezzar. So they had a training period, and that's why they were all gathered there. But at the end of that entire period, he brought them to the king, and the king talked to them. But who impressed the king most of all? Verse 19. Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. They all entered the royal service. And then in verse 20, it says, whenever the king consulted them in any matter requiring wisdom and balanced judgment, he found them 10 times more capable than any of the others. All right? And so this right here shows that when we trust and have faith in God, standing on what we already know is right. Amen. All right. That so this is faith, exercising their faith in the right way, not being indignant and rude, but being a good testament and testimony to how a Christian, us Christians, how a person of faith in God should be. All right, so this is good. So there's a couple of things that we can get out of this too. Let me ask you a couple of these questions because our time is actually up. So how should we respond when we face temptations to compromise or disobey God? And what should we do to resist that? That's a good question. So how can we in these times could be food. So we got to make sure that we're speaking up, we're doing what we're supposed to do, that we are in the Word so we know what the Word says. Because I've heard some people of late saying some stuff, and I'm like, no, that's not the Word. Because you know that enemy, he tries to twist. He knows this Word. He tried it with the Lord. He tried to twist this Word around. you know, throw yourself on the rock and let it. Understand. So everything that y'all said. So we can't get to thinking that we're have arrived, because now is the time for us to speak up when we see the wrong thing. Correct, but correct in love. Because some people honestly don't know. They're trying, oh, I'm just trying to accept everybody. Yes, we can accept everybody, but we cannot accept everything that they do. We got to tell people this is not what we're supposed to do. And I love you, but you're wrong in this instance. Okay? Um, so I like my pastor taught me not to come up here and be, let's say, I'm gonna use this is my cousin, y'all already know this, and I love her. So I said I saw it happen. But anyway, yeah.